Hear that? That's my alarm clock. How did I get here? Invested early, retired early. Now, my morning meeting is with the shore. Get where you're going with DIA, the only ETF that tracks the Dow. Getting there starts here with State Street Investment Management.
Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit statestreet.com/IM for prospectus containing this and other information. Read it carefully. DIA is subject to risks similar to those of stocks. All ETFs are subject to risk, including possible loss of principal. Alps Distributors, Inc. Distributor.
This is Lyle Blackburn, and you're listening to the Cryptid Creatures podcast with Brian and Todd.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show. If you're a fan of the show, go and check out our new Patreon site. You'll get access to our private Discord server, exclusive merchandise, access to all live streams and Q&As, discounts on merch from the Cryptid Creatures store, and get a chance to be a guest host during one of the show's recordings. Just go to www.patreon.com/Cryptid Creatures. Thank you for listening and supporting the show.
It was our Friday, so basically like our Thursday night, Friday morning. And our boss had told us that if we got all of the orders pulled, she would let us leave and just write on the time cards that we worked the full shift and actually got off work at 6:30 like we were supposed to, but we could leave whenever we got done. So, of course, you're basically being told, hey, I'm going to get paid a couple hours for not even being here, so of course you're going to hurry up and get done. So we did the best we could, got everything delivered, got back, and I think it was about 4:30, so basically leaving about 2 hours early, and it's still dark outside, and it's cold because it's February. So I let my vehicle warm up for a little bit, and then the coworkers, they leave or whatever, and I pull on out. And I come up to the first road. There was a car in front of me, and I feel like I knew it was my coworker, at least because we were the only ones out there. He's driving, and I just happened to see his taillights swerve off the road down into the grass and kind of swerve back onto the road. As I start to get closer, I can see there's someone, I say someone, walking in the middle of the road. And I'm like, why in the heck is there a person walking in the road? I start to get closer as I'm driving, like my headlights are hitting this thing and I'm seeing it, and it looks like, I think, a person wrapped in like a blanket or a big black cloak or black jacket or something huge, because I don't see their head and I don't see arms. So to me, it looks like someone like wrapped up, walking very weird in the middle of the road. So I'm thinking maybe it's like a drunk person or something, because the way they were moving didn't look natural. It looked very glitchy, almost like they were leaning in like weird wobbly movements. And as I got close to it, I could see, because I had to swerve off to the road too, because they weren't getting out of the way. So I basically come to a full stop, and whatever this thing is walks past my driver's window, and I'm pretty sure it bumps into my mirror. And as it walks by, I'm trying to look at it, and I can't make out details. All I see is solid black. I don't see fur. I don't see clothing. I don't see a head. I don't see arms. I just see a torso and legs, and they're really thick and big. And I'm in a Ford Explorer. Well, I looked online. I think it's the 66 inches is how the height of the roof of the Explorer is. Well, this thing was leaning forward. I never saw the top of it as it walked past. So with it leaning, I'm guessing it was probably, if it stood straight up, 6.5 feet to 7 feet tall. But it gets behind the vehicle, and my red taillights are still illuminating it, and I can see it as it takes a step and like does a weird another step. So at this point, I just tromp on the gas and like, I'm out of here. And I see that my coworker has pulled into this DOT parking lot, like a gravel pull-off parking lot. And he's like, did you see that? And I was like, what was it? He's like, it didn't have a head. And he seemed legitimately like confused and like worried about what that was. And I'm like, I want to go back. Like, my curiosity now, I want to know what that was walking, because it's so strange to me that it didn't have any describable definitive features that you could identify it as. So I convinced him to follow me back. So I let out and he followed behind me. And it's only about 1/4 of a mile away from where we pulled off into. So it's not even that far, because we were literally right by the highway. As we pull back down on the road, I see what looks like a large black dog laying across the road. But I don't know why I decided that I was going to park and get out and go look at this dog, because it wasn't there when we just drove by. And for some reason, I'm thinking This has to be what was in the road. But yet my brain, I guess at 4:30 in the morning, is not really processing like, why would there be a dog in the road or what was walking or none of that. So basically I'm stopping about 30 feet from this thing and my headlights are still shining on it. He's behind me. I open my door and I start to walk out and I hear him. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, there's a dead dog in the road. So I'm starting to walk up to this dog and it like lifts its head up off the ground and looks back. And at this point, its eyes are glowing from our headlights shining on it. And it lets out this really low rumbly, you can like almost feel it vibrating type of a growl. And I'm about 15 feet from it. So I just like stop. I'm like, oh, it's not dead. And it starts to try and stand up and it does like a little bit of a stumble. And at this point, I can hear my coworker screaming, get back in the car, you effing idiot. And I'm like, for whatever, I couldn't move. Like I was just staring at this thing. So I was confused because it's trying to stand up. And then it did, but it didn't stand up like on four legs. It went up like a human. I'm 6'3" and we're looking eye to eye with each other from 15 feet away with two sets of headlights shining directly on this thing. It wasn't a bear. It had a long bushy tail. It looked like a large black wolf, except when it stood up, it had shoulders and its front legs hung down like a person would. If you stood up, like it dropped like arms. But the weird thing about it was everything about it looked normal for a dog. Everything was proportionate for like a large black wolf or a large black shepherd type of a dog. It had the pointy ears, had the snout, but it didn't have like the typical werewolf Hollywood style hands, like the, you know, like people have like the fingers. It didn't have, it had paws. And like the legs, the way they were bent, they didn't look like a normal, they almost looked like a person's knees. They didn't have like the back bends to them. So I've often wondered now lately is like, was it someone in a costume? But who in the hell would be out in a costume at 4:30 in the morning? Not to mention this has to be the best costume I've ever seen because it literally had reflecting eyes. It could growl and all this other stuff. So that doesn't even make any sort of sense. But it looks at me for just a few seconds and then it squats back down like in a crouching position. And then it kind of like walks off, but it's not in a normal, I don't know how to describe the way it walks. Someone before asked me like a crab. I was like, sure, but it wasn't crab-like, I guess. Like it was hunkered down with its front arms or legs like pulled up to itself. And then it like went off in a weird like sideward pattern off to the ditch with its back legs. It was still never using its front legs. And once it got down in the ditch and it got out of the headlights, I couldn't see where it went. And at this point, I walked back to where my vehicle is and my coworker got out of his car. I won't drop the explicits, but basically we're like, what is going on here? Because this is crazy. And as we're talking about it, I happen to look down on the ground and standing in between us is a field mouse. But the mouse is also on its hind legs and he's wiping its face. He's like cleaning itself. He's all wet. He's rubbing his ears, rubbing his fur. And I look at him. I'm like, do you see this? And I take my shoe and I like push this mouse. And he doesn't even care that I touched him. He's literally just keeps cleaning itself. And at this point, I'm like, dude, I am done. There's too much crazy stuff going on that it makes no sense. So we left. Like I left the mouse in the middle of the road. I turned around. He turned around. He went his way. I went my way. Went across the highway. I went home and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning and I drew this picture of what I said was werewolf, because back then that's the first thing I could think of is like a human looking black wolf is a werewolf. And I scanned it and I put it on the internet on their forum things for like weird sightings or something. And someone said, oh, you saw a Michigan dog man.
When we were growing up, my parents had a place out there that we used to camp. They have 12 acres right over the Ohio line. And my best friend and I were playing paintball somewhere between 10 and midnight because it seemed like a good idea at the time. So we had, like duct tape laser pointers to these cheap paintball guns and we're taking shots at each other. And we have a trail system that we had cut in that I was coming I went into the woods and I was coming out onto a trail because I heard something in the woods and I thought it was him. Of course, I had this big grin on my face because it looked like he was back to me and I thought I was going to get the jump on him and sneak up real close and just unload. Little did I know he had the same idea, but he was on a different trail and thought he saw me. As I got closer, I still couldn't see it. It was pitch black. There's no, it was very rural even still today. There's no light or anything out there. It was kind of a cloudy night. So I just assumed it was him. What else would be walking upright and moving but the two of us? So I just started shooting at it with paintballs. It didn't seem like it reacted. That's really strange. So I really took off. Like, maybe I'm hitting a tree because it's pitch black and I can't see. I got closer to it and I realized it was not him at all. Whatever it was, which I believe was a Sasquatch, but it stood up. It towered over me. Easily 2 or 3 feet. And I'd never seen anything like that before. And frankly, it scared the hell out of me, so I took off running. My friend on another trail was kind of on, if you would, the main trail, thought the same thing. So he was shooting at it from the other direction, thinking it was me, and then it stood up and he saw the same thing, except he saw the other side of it. And he came running down a trail, and it was almost kind of where they connect at a point. We almost crashed into each other. And then that really got things shaken up because we both looked over, to the right, and there was this thing standing there that was walking towards us, and it was humongous. And it was wider and taller than both of us. The thing was massive. And frankly, we took off running. We went back to where the trailer was that we stayed in when we were out there because we thought we didn't really know what to think. We spent the next several hours trying to figure out what we saw. And I'd been to Bigfoot since I was a kid, as far back as I can remember. And I think we just saw a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. And we were going back and forth. I was like, "Are you sure there's something else out there?" And she, "Yeah, I'm sure." And we just kept talking about it. And it walked upright. It towered over me when it stood up in the woods. And very rarely in life do I encounter someone taller. It's an unusual circumstance. And for that thing to be that, I've never seen anything that big before in my life. I've met people that are 7 feet tall before, and it was beyond, in my opinion, it was 9-10 feet tall easily, and it was huge. It was wide. It was quick. It didn't make any noises. It didn't act aggressive. I think it was just confused. Frankly, we were confused as well, especially at 16. You see this massive thing and it's walking towards you. Our first instinct was to run, Now I would, of course, act differently. I'd probably stop and try to take a picture of it somehow. But there were no cell phones in the mid-90s, so, there was nothing. The next day when we went out to the woods to look kind of at the area to see what was going on, and we retraced his steps, my steps, we didn't see anything at the time that would have raised a red flag, although I would have looked for different things now than I would have back then. We were just trying to see if it was still around, if we could see it in the daylight, if we could see it further away. And we never saw it before or since.
We were camping in an RV in the park, and I was about 7 years old. And my dad used to like to fish, so he went to one of the local lakes, and my brother and mom and I headed up the road to the Sun in Glacier National Park in the RV, which you're not supposed to take the RV up there, but we did it anyway. So, because it's a very narrow, mountainous highway. So we went up there and we decided to pull off to hike up to a waterfall. And so, there were little pull-off spots for trailheads. So we got on the trailhead and we started to hike up to this waterfall, and I sort of got off trail somehow. I would say it was probably June, and I used to kind of compensate. I had asthma, so we were at a pretty high elevation. So I used to kind of compensate and run ahead and then slow down when other people were hiking, just to kind of like catch my breath. So I ran ahead, I'd say about 200 yards, and I saw a flash go by me, like a black flash go by me, and then another one right behind it. And I didn't know what to think. My brother and my mom were about 200 yards behind me on the trail, and a bear stepped out in front of me, and then right at that moment, what I would say would be a Sasquatch. I'd never seen one before, so I wasn't sure what to make of it, but it was basically like a 6'3", hairy, half man, half ape looking thing with reddish brown hair stepped out about 5 feet in front of me behind a tree in front of the bear. And then my brother started to make some noise and come up the trail, and it disappeared. I honestly don't remember what kind of a bear it was, because I was just surprised by the other thing that I was looking at, because I'd seen plenty of bears, I wasn't sure if it was a grizzly or a black bear, to be honest with you. It was a ways off. The bear was probably 20 or 30 feet from me, but the Sasquatch was right in front of me, and it was nude, but it was halfway behind a tree, and it had like reddish long hair, but it had opaque hair, like see-through hair, almost like a very hairy man, but it had an ape-like mouth on it. I remember saying, "Hi, Bigfoot," and the thing laughing at me. And next thing you know, it was gone. It took off. I turned my head for a minute to turn back to look for my mom and my brother. So I was kind of like, well, where are they at? I don't know what this thing is, And it was gone that quickly. But if I had to guess, being in Glacier National, it was like a reddish brown bear, so it probably was a grizzly. But like I said, I was so surprised by looking at the Bigfoot that I couldn't tell what kind of a bear it was, to be absolutely certain. The bear took off. Yeah, and it was almost like the Sasquatch was chasing the bear to begin with. Because like I said, I saw a flash to my left, and then I saw another flash. And it was almost like he was chasing the bear to begin with. I don't know if they call them the protectors of the woods, or, names of that sort. And this was definitely a friendly encounter. I didn't feel intimidated by the Sasquatch at all, or threatened by it, whatsoever. I remember briefly mentioning it to my mom that evening, and she's like, "Oh no, you saw a grizzly, you were mistaken, blah, blah, blah." So I never said anything about it after that until, all these shows started to come out. Then I started talking about it. Friends and relatives and people like that will buy me, like, they go to Oregon, they'll buy me like a little Sasquatch stuffed animal, or Sasquatch sculpture, or something for my porch, or but I never really talked about it, I'd say, for probably 30 years. I mean, you just didn't want to be considered nuts. So, especially seeing it that close. I mean, I was within 5 feet of it, and it looks like, I think somebody had a picture of it's called an Inoki or something like that. INOKUKI or something like that. Inoki. It looks like a typical Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. The thing had kind of like almost like a mullet haircut, but as if his hair had broken off, where it was like short in the front and then long in the back, and a beard, but not an extremely long beard or anything like that, but probably down, part way to his chest. And it was definitely redheaded. And like I said, the fur was see-through. I mean, he was very hairy, but you could see his bones through his hair.
We were driving through. It was about maybe like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't remember where I was heading to, but I stopped off at a state park called the McCollum River, and to use the bathroom. So on my way to the river, my van dies. And then so I get out and I pop the hood, check on it, and I just started getting this really, really bad, terrible, dreadful feeling. And something said, "Get back in the car." So I did, and voila, the van turned over. So I got to the river, used the bathroom, got back in the van, and was about to leave, and the van wouldn't start. So, so just sat there about an hour, and I tried to start the van again, and it wouldn't start, like, for nothing. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out what to do, and something catches my eye across, because at that moment I was in the first, because there are two parking lots there. This one is slightly lit. It has, I think it has 1 or 2 light posts, but it's the only parking lot on the river that is somewhat lit. So this thing catches my eye, and I watch a really large animal. At that time, I didn't catch the whole thing, but I just caught like half of its body. And large animal walking through the brush and in through the tree line. And I thought it was a bear at first. And I was like, wait. There are no bears here. There aren't any mountain lions here, so what the heck is that? It was a little bigger than a black bear. And so it comes out, and it's on all fours, and it's standing there just staring at me. And I was like, is that a freaking werewolf? I didn't know what to think of it. And so it then starts it starts walking towards my van, and my dog got real freaked out and went to the back of the van. So I went back there with him, and this thing, it came up to the van, and it circled around the van like 4 times, just trying to like see in. And then it goes back around, and it stops, and it's now standing in front of the van, still on all fours, but then it stands up on its hind legs, and it paces the van one more time. And I was like, oh my God, it is a freaking werewolf. I didn't know anything about dogmen then, but and then it left. It didn't bother us. I think it was more shocked that I was there than anything. What was going through my head, like, I never felt more fear than I did at that moment. Like, I was in shock too. So I just started praying, and 100% the prayer is what pushed it away. So, but I was pretty terrified, but I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I was like, is this really happening? Like, is this really happening right now? But yeah, now that I've been investigating, I mean, I have a slight idea. There are a lot of wild turkey there. And so it was probably, I think it was hunting turkey, because there's a ton of wild turkeys on that property there.
So when this thing was standing up and circling your van, were you just sitting in the driver's seat watching this thing?
No, I was in the back seat with my dog.
Okay, I would have been too.
Yeah, like I was crouched down behind the middle seat.
So this thing takes off eventually. Your van starts up and you get the heck out of there, I take it?
No, I had to call. They had to tow me out of there.
So did you have to stay there that night, or did you get out of there that night?
Got out.
Okay.
Got out. I rode with the tow truck, and and then they brought me to a mechanic, and the mechanic fixed the problem. So.
So did you tell anybody after this happened?
Oh no. No, I didn't think anybody would believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who is going to, but now that I know what I know about dogmen and have listened to a ton of different people's encounters, I wish I would have said something before, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about dogmen, but I started investigating paranormal stuff back when I was 17. And but I just thought they were just werewolves. So I knew quite a bit about werewolves, but didn't know anything about dogmen until now. But I'm full-time researcher now, and back then I wasn't. I'm a pretty busy guy. I try to keep myself busy. The 2 Dogman books that I wrote are basically, they are encounters that people have submitted to me, and I wrote them into a book. And there's some really frightening ones in those books. Some really, really terrifying encounters that I feel bad for the person that had to experience that.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
It was November 30th last year, 2024. My wife and I had spent the day Christmas shopping in Greenville, Ohio. We were on our way home, and I will warn you, I may get emotional on this. So,
Sure. Yep.
So we're coming up State Route 28. It's very rural. It's all farmland on both sides of the road. Not a lot of lights. There was a car maybe 300 yards, 200 to 300 yards in front of me. It's hard to tell at night. But you guys know, because you guys are in Indiana and Midwest, that time of night, that time of year, you're watching for deer. You know, So when you have a car in front of you, when it's dark out like that, you're watching their tail lights to see, if they hit the brakes, if they swerve, if anything walks in between you guys, So, I'm focused on the road. I've lived in the country my whole life. I know about deer, So we're about 5 miles outside of Union City, and there's a little stream, and I can't remember the name of the little stream. It's a feeder into the Mississinawa River, and as we cross this bridge, something appears in the center lane. Like, when I say appears, it was like 1 second it was there, 1 second, and 1 second it's not, 1 second it is. It's just there. And at first, all I could see was this gray mass. I'm doing probably 60 mile an hour, and I would guess, and it's nighttime, it's hard to tell, and this whole thing only took a few seconds, maybe 3 to 5 seconds. Something's in the center lane, and it's gray, kind of like cigarette ash gray. As I get closer, it's the upper body of a man, and it's like up on its knuckles, like on its fists, and I can only see from like the belly button up. I said it was November 30th, so it's cold that night. This thing had no clothes. It was like fit and muscular, so not like bodybuilder muscular, but like in shape. So when I'm first coming up on it, its body is facing me in the center lane, and it's looking off to its right. And it turned and looked at me, and it had no eyes. Like, it was just like sockets, like holes. From the nose down, there was nothing. It was like skin. I couldn't see any ears. It had no hair on it. So as I get closer, so it's up on its knuckles. With its right hand, it took a step and then moved towards me. And then with its left hand, it lunged at the car. So my wife, she was on her phone doing a Walmart order. So she wasn't paying attention to the road, but I swerve. And, immediately I was like, "Did you see that?" And of course she didn't. And then something, I couldn't talk. It took me probably 5 minutes to be able to even tell her what I saw. And when I did, she was like, "Do you want to go back?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to. I don't even know what I saw. All I know is it shouldn't have been there." So we going home. It's about 15-minute drive from my house to where this happened. And we go inside, and like I'd said at the beginning, I'd made friends with guys from Nevermore Hollows, and they're very much into the paranormal and stuff. So immediately I call Alan and tell him what happened, and he gets his co-host on the line, Chris, and they start helping me work through it, what did you see, and trying to calm me down, because at this point, I'm crying, because that was the most fear I've ever felt in my life, because that's not supposed to exist, you know? And so I talked to them for about 15, 20 minutes, and I needed a cigarette. I did. So I went outside to smoke. But one of the questions they had asked me was, did I hit it? And at the time, I mean, if you've ever hit like a cat or a squirrel or something, you feel it. But I didn't feel anything. So no, I don't think I hit it. So while I'm out there smoking, I decide to go out and look at the vehicle. Like, maybe I did. And I looked at the front fender, and there was nothing. And I'll send you guys these pictures. But when I got to the driver's side door, there were like 4 finger swipes down the side of the vehicle from like the road salt and stuff that's on the car. And I measured them, and it was 8 inches from fingertip to fingertip. And like, so if it's reaching out and it's hitting with these 4 fingers, these 2 fingers were like close together like this, and the other 2 were spread out, but it was 8 inches from here to here. And, so I come back in, my wife looks at me and she's like, what's wrong? Like, she could see it on my face. And I'm like, it touched the car. And, I take her out and show her, and, now she's kind of freaked out. So when I talked to Alan and Chris, we were trying to decide, what this could be. And the first thing that I thought was rape, but I never saw, like, it looked like just the upper body. It was like, I never saw any legs. I never saw it honestly kind of looked like it was coming up out of the ground. The way it was, like, to me, that's what it looked like. I can't say that's what it was doing. It could have been dragging its back legs. I don't know, because it was dark and it was facing towards me. So if its legs were behind it, maybe I just didn't see that. But so at first, rape was the first thing that came to mind for me. And I immediately started like researching, looking into the rake, because to me, the rake was a creepypasta, just something that was made up, to scare kids or whatever. And I started doing some research into the area. There is 3 different Native American burial grounds within 12 miles, or burial mounds within 12 miles. One of which is, I think it's like 8 miles right down the Mississinawa River. And it had been defaced when an English graveyard was put on top of it. Did you guys ever have, what's his name? Last name Zimmerman. I want to say Hans Zimmerman or Franz Zimmerman. No. He did a study of the Native American burial mounds, and he found like 90 in Ohio and Indiana that were on private property. One of which is right down the road from me, and they'd actually found oversized skeletons inside of it. One of the other questions that Alan had asked me was there any cemeteries or anything nearby? And I don't know, like when you drive down a road so many times, like you can drive down the road and be like, oh, I never noticed that house before. There was literally a cemetery like 100 yards from where I saw this thing. So then it was like, well, maybe it was some kind of spirit that I saw, but it left physical marks on my car, So I had somebody else tell me that maybe it was a Nalusa. I went kind of down that rabbit hole. It kind of fits, but the only reason it kind of fits is because in the description of the Nalusa, it says it gives you overwhelming fear and sorrow. And honestly, that's what I felt at the time. You know, that was probably the most fear I've ever felt in my life.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
I walked out to go hunting and across the road from where I grew up. There was he had a soybean field. We had soybeans in that field that year, and so I went all the way down to the edge and walked back, and there's a tree line back there, and I'd had a ladder I'd just put up in a tree. There was just a big old oak tree back there that had a big old limb coming off it. And I just would stand up there and just stand off that limb and hunt. And I just had gotten back there that afternoon. I think it was around about 2:30 in the afternoon when I went out. And I just climbed up in the tree and I stood there in the tree, just, taking in how nice it was out that day. I'm just kind of standing there looking around, and I'm standing in the tree and I'm facing to the south. I'm just kind of looking around. I look down to my left. I'd probably been out there maybe about 15 minutes or so. I hadn't been out there very long at all, 15, maybe 20. And I look down to my left, and all of a sudden I catch a glimpse of something black, just barely busting the tops of the soybeans. And, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, this must be one big effing dog, because the soybeans, the farmer had rode the soybeans, and the soybeans were tall. I mean, these soybeans were like at least 3.5 foot tall. So I'm just watching, and and it's moving my way, but kind of angling out away from me. And so I'm just keeping my eye down that way, and then all of a sudden, once in a while, I would see like a black something just kind of break the top of the soybeans once in a while. And I'm just watching, and it probably took from the first time I saw it till it got out in front of me was probably, it wasn't super long. I say maybe 10, 12 minutes, something like that. Well, I'm standing in the tree, and this thing's straight out in front of me, and all of a sudden it just stood up. And I'm just like in total shock, like, what the heck is this? And it looked just like it looked like a well-built man covered in long, like 3-inch, like stringy hair. And the hair on it wasn't like so thick it was like a bear, but his whole body was completely covered in that long stringy hair, and you could see it just as plain as day. Well, I can still see him standing. It stands up, and when he stood up, I'm guessing this thing had to be in the range between 8 and 9 foot tall at least, because these soybeans are tall, and I can see the tops of his legs without a problem. And when it stood up, I'm just like, wow, it's hair. It had hair. It split right down the center of his head, and it's like hair like laid on both sides of his head. This thing was so freaked out about being in the open like that. His eyes were bugged wide open, and it looked back and forth like 3 or 4 times real fast, like, how the hell do I get out of here? You know, how do I get out of here? I mean, I can still see that. I can see it standing there. I can see the daylight between its arms hanging there. I can actually see his chest going in and out because he's trying to, you know, his chest is going in and out while he's trying to catch his breath. And I'm just sitting there going, wow, you know, and he didn't stand there super long. I mean, you know, if he stood there probably, you know, 2 minutes at the most, you know, and I'm just watching this thing. And I mean, he was, you know, everybody says, well, what was he, you know, like big and wide? I said, he was tall. I mean, he was tall. He was built, well built, but his shoulder on this one, his shoulders weren't like you see a lot of depictions of these shoulders that are like, you know, 3 foot wide, 4 foot wide, something like that. He wasn't that wide, really. I mean, he was just super. I mean, looked like a big ass football player. You know what I mean? And he's standing there, and all of a sudden, I'm like, he starts flailing his arms around, and I'm thinking he's going back down on all fours. This thing is going back down. Well, from me, he's facing me, and he did a complete 180 standing up, and he did a complete 180 and started running away from me upright, just like a human being. Let me tell you something. When this thing took off, I mean, it ran like a wild child. I mean, its arms were flailing like crazy. This thing, the soybeans were running east and west in that field. He ran south. He ran crossways through them soybeans. And I mean, this thing was running. I mean, he went through them soybeans like they weren't a problem. You know, I'm standing up in this tree just shocked, like, what the hell am I seeing here, you know? And I have the, you know, mentalness about me going, you know what? I'm going to look away. I'm going to look away here for a couple seconds, and I'm going to look back, and this thing's going to be gone. It was just a figment of my imagination. And so I looked to my left, and I mean, probably, you know, maybe did a 2 count, 3 count, something like that. Turned back and looked, and I'm like, son of a bitch is still running. You know, and it's actually heading towards County Line Road, the road I grew up on. And all I can think of from there at that point is, my gosh, it's going to cross the road. There's corn. There's a cornfield on the other side of the road. And I'm thinking, just please, Lord, let somebody be coming down this road when it crosses. Let somebody else see this other than just me. You know what I mean? And it hit the road, crossed the road, and he was gone. And, you know, I'm just standing there in the tree, you know, just kind of thinking, well, that just happened. And I just kind of thought, well, you know, I don't know what I was trying to figure out. I guess I was probably still in a little bit of shock. And I thought, well, I'll just, you know, go back to hunting here. Well, I probably stood there for about 5 minutes in the tree, if it was that long, and just going, no, I think my hunting's done for the day. And I climbed down out of the tree and just headed back to the house and walked back to the house.